Good day and welcome to Fraidy Geeks. My name's Dan. I am joined by Jason. Today we're going to talk about Deep Red. It is a film from 1975, directed by Dario Argento, and starring David Hemmings doing his best Paul McCartney impression.
I had that same thought as I was watching the movie.
They're in the bar, and I'm thinking, the patrons are like, "Do Strawberry Fields." What do you want to do first, Jason?
Um, let's talk horror films, Dan. What is it that makes you so enticed by this genre of film specifically?
I like horror films because if it's a good movie, then you get scared and it's a good horror film. And I like that. If it's a really bad horror film, then it's automatically a comedy. So what you have to watch out for are like the middle ones that are just boring enough not to be really bad, but aren't good. But I mean, it's pretty much a genre that has it all. I mean, and it's hard to do really well.
Yeah, I grew up watching a lot of Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, so I haven't always been like the balls deep guy with the horror genre. I've kind of been on the outside, but since we've become friends, I've started expanding my horizons, and as I've become more into film in general, I've expanded my horizons, especially with horror. And I'm finding that I like the suspense a lot. And I was thinking about this today. That's one of the things that is missing in slasher films these days, because they have the kills. The kills are there, but there's no real lead up. You're not like on the edge of your seat to find out what's going to happen next, and you don't care about the characters. And that's something that I really like in horror films, is the lead up, is the character development.
Yeah, like if you look at like Friday the 13th, which one was it? Part 4. When you got like Crispin Glover and everybody, and you kind of care about him a little bit because he's a likable idiot. And you care about his goofy friends and stuff, or the kind of chubby, sad guy from like part 3 who always has the masks and crap. It's like, oh, poor guy. But now they make everybody into an asshole. And you want to see them die, but you don't really care.
Yep, I couldn't agree anymore. Nightmare on Elm Street is another franchise that I really like. It was really good. And what's funny about these movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, Saw, Paranormal Activity. I'm not a big Paranormal Activity fan, but the first films or the series in general was extremely popular, and for the most part they were all really good. And then it's the 50 million copycats that follow each one of these like significant films. Like with Saw, you had Hostel, then you had other stuff. Human Centipede, I think, is the train that was started with Saw. And
Literally.
Paranormal Activity, you've got a million ripoffs. The Halloween and Friday the 13th is probably the most ripped off out of all of them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's true, but you could say that, well, in our movie today, I mean, this has many of the tropes that make a giallo. I mean, it's a true giallo film, which gave birth to the modern slasher. But you had movies before, like Friday the 13th, and those that did it. But somewhere along the line, like Hollywood just started regurgitating everything. Like maybe, I don't know, mid 90s ish or so, because you didn't just have Scream. You have I Know What You Did Last Summer, and all the little byproduct ones that came out.
Urban Legend.
Yeah. I remember when that came out, I liked it for some reason, so I bought it a while ago and I watched it again. I was like, this movie is awful.
I think I remember liking the first one. I haven't watched it since, and then I watched the sequel, and that was horrible. And then I watched the third one, and that was horrible. So I've never bothered to go back because I don't want to ruin the memory that I have of enjoying the original one.
Final cut. Yeah. I like horror. It's good.
That was a nice little segue into our movie, though.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a bit about the Giallo. First off, do you know much about it, Jason? Or
No.
basically, it's a I guess you could say movement that started in Italian cinema. It got its name because Giallo translates into yellow, and murder mysteries, like were pulp magazines, and they were printed on yellow paper. And they are murder mysteries, but they're usually more violent. They have their own kind of internal logic, which is lacking at some points of the film. But as this one kind of does. But people like Mario Bava and Umberto Lenzi and Dario Argento, who still makes them. In fact, he made a movie called Giallo a couple years ago. They I think brought out the best of the genre using like awesome cinematography and lighting. It doesn't matter if the murder mystery makes much sense as long as it looks really cool. And there's a whole list of them, but they never really translated over here as well. Like they made like these elaborate set pieces and stuff, and we got Friday the 13th. So I don't know how those added up to each other, but they somehow did.
Yeah, I like a good murder mystery. It's the mystery genre is like a subsidiary of horror in a lot of ways, the suspense. But yeah, I'm reading online. I didn't know this that this movie was released in Japan under the title Suspiria 2.
Yeah, because Suspiria came out after this one, but then it did really well. So then they put out Deep Red over there.
And when Dan let me borrow this movie, he told me to really listen for the soundtrack, and you almost can't not listen to the soundtrack. It gets louder, and I really enjoyed it. It was like its own character in the film.
It's done by a band called Goblin, which their albums are on iTunes, and I suggest anybody who likes it to go pick them up because they're good. But yeah, they did the score to a lot of Argento's films. They did a couple scores to Lucio Fulci, and they did the original Dawn of the Dead score as well. So they're really freaking good.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of things in this movie that I thought was kind of ahead of its time.
Well,
let me pull up my notes.
You want to do a synopsis?
I'll let you do that.
Oh, great. All right. So Deep Red. Okay, it starts out. David Hemmings plays Marcus. He's a pianist. He works in the conservatory, teaching people and playing. He's walking home one day, and he sees a lady hanging out of a window, and he has to go up and try to save her because that's what kind of guy he is. And he runs down the hallway and finds out that she's been stabbed with a meat cleaver and then stabbed with a window, and she's quite dead. So the cops come. This kind of annoying, spunky reporter shows up. Her name's Gianna, played by Daria Nicolodi. And she takes a picture of him, and it ends up on the front page. So instead of running back to London, he decides to figure out who did this murder. And of course, anytime anybody figures out who the murderer is, the murderer kills them before the audience or Marcus learns. His other hobby is to hang out by this fountain next to a real life rendition of the Nighthawks painting with his buddy Carlo, who plays at the Blue Bar and likes getting drunk until apparently like 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean, the movie basically has it all. I mean, it's got creepy kids, it's got an old scary mansion. It's got really cool kills, you know, for a horror movie. It's got creepy kid drawings. It's got creepy kids singing. It's got a spooky doll that comes running out of nowhere. It's a really cool flick. Are we spoiling this or not?
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Okay, spoiler alert for a film done in 1975. So everybody who figures out who did the killing dies, but Marcus is like hot on their trail, and it takes him to this old mansion where this murder happens, and he breaks through this like false wall, and there's this dude that's been killed like years ago, and then the killer hits him on the head and sets the whole place on fire. So they end up going through different clues through this. Oh yeah, it's got spooky old school too. So so they go to the school and they realize after the nice reporter lady gets stabbed in the gut that Carlo is the one killing everyone, and the really inept cops show up to run him away, and he then gets stuck in the back of a truck and bashed against the curb and dies. But then, as Marcus is going home, he realized it could have been Carlo because they were hanging out of the fountain at the time of the first murder. And it's Carlo's mom. And she chases him around with the cleaver and then gets stuck in an elevator and her head pops off. The end.
Yeah. So, as somebody who's watched a lot of horror films, is this one of the first movies to have a female killer?
No. I mean, a lot of the giallos go for the twist ending. Usually, your killer has to be like stark raving loony. I've seen one where it was gender swapping priests who turned out to be scary women. It's not a first. It is like slightly unconventional, I guess, because usually it's the dude stabbing, you know, the pretty girls until they catch him. So.
Yeah, my favorite part of this movie was the bathtub death scene. I don't know what that says about me, but I thought it was fantastic. Is that lady she wouldn't die even after she puts her head in the bathtub and she's laying on the ground with boils and she's had her head banged and everything else. She's still like barely alive, but she's enough to write something. And yeah, I enjoyed that part.
Duly noted. Don't go in the scary bathroom. No, my favorite part is either A, the bird that just flies into the knitting needle, which I'm not sure why a bird would do that, but
yeah, that was my second favorite part.
And the main dude going through the old scary house, because I like haunted spooky house stories. And you get the payoff of him like nailing through the wall and finding the decades old corpse.
That freaking doll that got me once. I jumped quite a few times in this movie. I can't think of every specific instance, but that was definitely one of them. And the bird getting stabbed, that I jumped at that too.
But it doesn't really have unnecessary jump scares in it. Not
No.
like, a cat jumps in the room and the music spikes and you're like, oh, it's a cat. I mean, all the jump scares like lead to something.
Yep.
So what was your main impression of this, Jason?
I didn't know what to what I was thinking because part of it's in Italian, part of it's in English. So when I first started watching it, I'm like, "Is this going to be the first time Dan lets me down?" And then the movie, I got more and more into it as it was going, and I can't wait to watch it again. To be completely honest, I want to go back, knowing what I know now, and rewatch it. That's one of the best things to do with a murder mystery story is to go back and see what clues lead up to the ending.
Yeah, here's a spoiler. You can catch the killer's face if you pause your DVD player at exactly 19 minutes and 26 seconds into the film. Because once you learn the ending, you want to go back and see if you could actually see it then. And yeah, you can. But you can really tell that this is an Argento film. I mean, through his shots and his point of view, like especially during the first half of the film, is really neat because you get the point of view of the killer, like leaving the psychics after she's been fingered, and she goes to the bathroom, but it won't show her hand because she doesn't have the scary gloves on. So the water turns on by itself, still in first person. And then she looks up at the mirror, but you can't see her because the mirror is all clouded over. It's just like cool little touches that make it kind of suspenseful because something's got to go on. And just the fact that you can't see who it is kind of creepy.
Yeah, no, I really liked it. I'm looking at Rotten Tomatoes right now. This movie's sitting at a 95%.
Yeah, there's one bad review from the New York Times
Yep.
that calls him inept as a director.
Yep, incompetent too.
Yes, there you go. And that truly makes me sad.
After finding out the same guy who did Suspiria, it makes a lot of sense. The way it was shot and the music too, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the lady that plays the reporter, she's the one that wrote the script for Suspiria.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You got anything else?
Nope, that's all I got. What's next week? What do you want to do next week? I think we should do Dawn of the Dead. I've never seen it.
Okay. Which cut?
You tell me. We could
actually,
we could do the Dead trilogy: Night, Dead, and Dawn, or Night, Dawn, and Day.
Let's start with Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah. I will get you the I forget what they call it. There's a cut that they showed in Europe, just called the European cut, but it's longer than ours.
Okay, yeah,
cool.
It'll be fun to watch. I really like Night of the Living Dead, and I would love to see that.
I mean, you've never seen Dawn of the Dead?
Never. I've seen the remake.
Watching Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, I've seen the remake. I have not seen the original.
Oh, you sad man. But all right. Until next time, this has been Fraidy Geeks. I'm Dan.
Jason. Mike will be a regular on this too. And yeah, he's got a lot of horror knowledge as well. You can check out Mike at youtube.com/Mike McGTV. And actually, real quick, I want to send a quick plug. Mike and Dan also host a horror podcast on Mike's channel. So check that out.
Not a horror podcast. It's an exploitation and pretty much bad 70s movies podcast so far.
Well, there you go. Have a great night, everyone.